explored in a better way scientifically, because all the 9 boundaries, they closely interact, and we need to understand these interactions better. We need some definitions of boundaries are directly related to other boundaries, so there's still room for.
Yeah, I'm Dieter Gerten, working in Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research in Potsdam, Germany, and I'm leading their group on biosphere and water modeling with a focus on planetary boundaries.
And what was some of the most interesting things that you heard today in this session, or what is your takeaway from this specific session?
The session that I joined today really made the point that land use and land system is really a critical element on Earth, with feedbacks, important feedbacks to the climate, with feedbacks to the water use, with feedbacks actually to our overall society. So it's a core element, the Earth system, that we really need to take care for in its interactions with all the other environmental issues that we have.
And will you be able to use this session and this conference for your own research?
Well, I will use, and I have made notes of the session, of particular papers and studies that have been reported, and I will, of course, integrate them in further analysis to the extent that I didn't know of them yet, and to the extent that we need them for further research in our lab.
And is there some specific thing that you hope for to see or to do in the next 3 days that we still have left in the other sessions?
I will use the next days that I'm here for listening to sessions about topics that I do not yet know much about, because that will open up the minds for other things. My strongest interest would be in societal implications of climate change and adaptation pathways and things like this.
Very good. I think that's a very concrete action point for next days. Anything else you would like to? Do you have anything else you would say? You would like to say to students who are entrepreneurs on the climate?
Take-home message for students maybe that they really should be trained and be professional in thinking interdisciplinarily, because I think that's the crucial point in all this research.
Hi, I'm Dalin. I'm a researcher at the London School of Economics in the Potsdam Institute on Climate Change and the Environment. So I'm an hydrologist, and I worked in an interdisciplinary team with natural scientists, with social scientists and economists, looking at water, food, energy linkages in developing region of Southern Africa.
And could you then maybe tell us about this energy, water, food nexus? Not so much what it is, but also why, what is the added value of taking this perspective?
So the perspective of water, energy, food nexus is about accounting for linkages between the sector of water, energy and food. Linkages because they are all dependent on the same natural resources, and also because they need one another. For example, you need energy to provide desalinated water, or you need crops to provide biofuel energy. So those connections are really important, because instead of looking at each sector in isolation and maybe have unintended consequences of your actions into other sectors, you can take a systemic approach for better progress towards sustainable development.
And did we not already know that we had to do that? How is this new?
Okay, so it's true. In the debate about the nexus recently, the critics have said that we already had this sort of approaches before, like integrated water resource management, so looking at water in different sectors and trying to optimize use of that. But now what's changed, I think, is first that the context has changed because of population growth, pressure from demand, consumption patterns are really growing and intensifying pressure on natural resources. So now governments, decision maker, institutions, even businesses are forced to really consider those issues of water and other resources scarcity. and take this approach to improve efficiency. And also in terms of tools and methods that are now available, I think there are more of them and more advanced. For example, the water footprinting or the carbon footprinting, virtual water trade, which is looking at embedded water resources in food trade, are tools that are really now very potentially very efficient and very developed, and everybody has been increasingly interested in applying those tools. So I think the context now makes it a bit more relevant.
Cool. And what is your main takeaway from the session today? What did you learn? So
the session today was on climate change and land system feedbacks. I think it was very interesting. I learned a lot as well, even though I'm quite familiar with the climate systems and agriculture in particular. But I learned a lot about what are the uncertainties and what are the areas that we still need to work on. For example, there was a talk about the emissions from land use change, and we know a lot about how deforestation is impacting the climate in a negative way because it releases carbon. But we also, what I didn't know before is that now management of land is more important than change, because we have used almost all the available land, so it's really how we manage it that is important. So that was nice.
Very good. And what do you hope to get out of the rest of the conference, the next 3 days?
So I'm going to be here until the end of the conference, and I think I saw a lot of interesting sessions that I put in my program. I'm very interested in water, so I'm going to go to the talks about freshwater scarcity and how we can deal with ensuring water security. And so I hope I will learn also new things and new research about that. And on Thursday, I think the day is more focused on the energy sector. And in my nexus recent research, we are working on hydropower, the connections between climate variability and energy production vulnerability to these patterns. So I think it will be nice also to hear about more the energy people that I'm not so familiar with.
Good. And do you have any advice, last question, to students who are working on climate and entrepreneurship?
That's a tough one.
Maybe not.
So advice for students working on climate entrepreneurship. I think that for me, a really important thing is agriculture. A really important area that we need to work on, because first of all, it's providing food for everyone, so it's obviously key, but also it's using most of our resources, 70 to 80% of the water resources used in agriculture. It's connected to climate change with carbon cycle effects of soil and land use changes, and also it's this organic farming is something that has been regarded a bit of like an outsider sort of solution. Yes. But now we know that politicians and decision makers in the climate negotiations have actually realized the importance of conserving the soil fertility instead of making a sort of artificial soil with fertilizer and other inputs. You should do like recycling, composting, to try to keep this sort of live soil growing. So maybe work on soil.